It's very even keel. So,
but you don't expect that in a superhero movie, though, right? You expect not. Well, houses blow up all the time. Well, people become Blue Beetles often in my life. Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we'll be discussing the new movie, Blue Beetle, and on our Retro Rewind, we'll be discussing Shazam.
And we also have some sensational Hollywood news, and Harrison Ford gets wild with some reptiles. Rebecca, let's get started.
Jaime Reyes has found a job at Cord Industries, or so he thinks. When an ancient artifact chooses Jaime as his host, he inherits the power it holds and the attention it receives. With enemies coming after him, Jaime has to learn to coexist with the scarab and learn who he can trust with his new life before it's too late.
Rebecca, we both wanted to go see Blue Beetle. Tell our cinema community a little bit more why you wanted to see it.
I'm a bit attached to the character concept of Blue Beetle. I grew up reading some of Ted's comics and Justice League International. Ted Kord is an earlier version of the character who does not show up in this movie, but his legacy is discussed with the other characters. But the character that I got really, really excited to see was Jaime. Now, Jaime is a version of the Blue Beetle that was created in the early 2000s. And he's a little bit different than other versions of the Blue Beetle. The previous Blue Beetles had kind of relied on their tech. Mm-hmm. And it was very grounded, very human-based. Specifically, Ted's tech is a little bit more kind of think goofy Batman.
Whoa, it's like Batman stuff. Batman's a fascist.
But instead of bats, he deals with beetles.
And goofy meaning more along the lines of more like an Adam West type of a Batman, or?
It's a little bit more leaning towards that way. He and his buddy Booster Gold, they kind of make fun of superhero comics and like some of the tropes and stuff. So there's always a good time whenever you're reading it, whether it's serious or more the humorous direction it tends to go in.
Well, and that's interesting because this movie was more serious with Jaime.
Yes, Jaime's character tends to be a bit more grounded and deal with family issues and concerns that pop up in our lives.
Well, and there was a lot of family connections. We were seeing Grandma, we were seeing Crazy Uncle Rudy, George Lopez was Crazy Uncle Rudy, the sister, his dad, his parent. I mean, very multi-generational, and they spent a lot of time in the beginning really establishing his connection with his family and coming back home. Just issues that we deal with.
I think that was really smart because here's a alien scarab that comes to Earth, provides these superpowers. It's a very easy way to say this character is so far removed from Earth because of these alien powers and these concerns, but instead Jaime makes being a superhero relatable.
As if becoming a Blue Beetle is something that happens every day. If I unzip my sweatshirt, I don't think I'm a Blue Beetle. However, that's an interesting note. They did talk about the alien aspect, and I'm thinking, more ancient Egyptian, not alien scarab. So that was interesting to me.
So, yeah, I think that was kind of cool that they took that direction.
Now, did you know that they were going to take it that direction, or was that something that was new to you?
It's shown in the comics that Jaime is kind of like the bearer of the alien scarab.
Oh, interesting. Oh, because my understanding, you were like, in this iteration, and there's 3, and you were saying how many years has this franchise been?
The Blue Beetle as a character concept has been around for about 89 years.
Okay, so far before I'm laughing, my grandparents probably remember the Blue Beetle. But it's interesting because I knew nothing about it going in. And had you not said, hey, there's 2 other versions, I would have thought, this is the one, this is the only, because my understanding, this is the first live action Blue Beetle movie.
That's correct. This is the first live action movie. A couple versions of these characters have shown up before. There was a Smallville episode when they were trying to create like this whole Justice League arc. That these characters would pop up.
And Smallville, for our cinema community who may not know, is?
So in the early 2000s, the CW tried to create a superhero show focused around the premise of how did Superman become Superman?
Correct. And several of my friends, one of my close friends, her and her gal pals would get around and watch this. And I remember every week she would come into work and she would say, here's the latest. So by extension, I understand Smallville and understand it was a good series. A lot of people really liked it.
A lot of people, especially in my generation, have fond memories of how it interpreted certain comic book characters. I mean, I still have a soft spot for Michael Shanks's interpretation of Hawkman.
Well, and it's interesting because you're able to go back and say, this is of my generation, even though, as we said, it goes back 89 years. And so the theme is pretty timeless.
The theme is pretty timeless, and I think that Jaime created a fresh update for a character that not necessarily might have needed it, but it extended the life of a character into something that I think could outlive previous iterations.
And as expected, there is a nod to a potential sequel.
Yes, there
After the
is
fact.
2 post-credit scenes.
Yes.
One of them I would encourage you see. That's the first one. The second one is kind of a little funny gag kind of continuation through the movie.
Well, and we had talked about the acting, and the lead is someone you know from Cobra Kai, correct?
Yes, that was the other reason I was primarily excited about seeing this movie as part of the new DC slate. Zorro plays Miguel,
Yes.
one of the 2 leads of Cobra Kai, and he does such a great job of playing Miguel that I was really excited to see his take on Jaime. I felt like he could be responsible with the character, if that makes sense.
He was a great actor. In a lot of the up and coming and the younger actors, I enjoyed it. It felt like, he could be my son. And the joke we have with your friends, right? Not my kids. He could be not my son. And I really enjoyed it. Lots of connection around the family, lot of multi-generational. The sister, the grandma, the parents, crazy Uncle Rudy, right? George Lopez. George Lopez was amazing.
That's one of the things I really liked about this movie is there's a lot of layers to the intergenerational relationships.
Yes, very much.
It wasn't, I'm only focused on this person, like the grandma. I'm only going to focus on like my maternal relationships. I'm only going to focus on my paternal relationships. Everybody has a relationship with each other.
And culture played a big part of that too. And if you're part of the Latino culture, you may see some very familiar tropes, if you will, or, family dynamics. And even I think just he's coming back from college, right? That's how the movie starts. He comes back from college. He's coming back home. And that dilemma of have I, outlived my family, or have I outgrown? That's probably a better word. Have I outgrown my family and where I grew up and who I was growing up and who I am now?
There's also several other little pop culture nods. I'm not saying anything, but there's a popular telenovela that is referenced.
Oh, wow. No, I think you see so many of those pieces that I miss. And I think part of that is just your knowledge of the superhero movies. Clearly, I'm not sure if I'm DC's ultimate audience. I'm not sure if they're looking to people like you and say, oh, they know this is coming out, they're so excited. Or if they look at people like me and say, hey, welcome to the franchise. We'll catch you up. But I didn't feel lost. But we've talked in the past in previous Cocoon Cast episodes where the elbow, right? You and the elbow. And there were many your direction because I know there were things that I was missing. But I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused for that reason. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we felt about the movie beyond why we chose the movie.
I think the acting choices were really cool because these are actors that in the United States, we might not know, but in their corners of the world, they're very well known. In fact, the gal who played Miguel's mom, her name is kind of escaping me at the moment.
Sure.
She received an Academy Award nomination for a role in Babel. Even though it was an English language co-production, a lot of foreign actors were kind of slighted in this regard, especially in the early 2000s.
Oh, I thought you meant now. I thought, no. I mean, it was predominantly a Latino culture. There were, and I know you and I talked about it. It wasn't subtitles, but when they were speaking Spanish, some of the words were on the screen. And you had commented, you remember what you were saying about at different times they weren't.
Yes, there is definitely some choices to subtitle the necessary words, but I also like the fact that some of it wasn't subtitled. That way you felt like you were in that universe with the characters.
No, I agree with that. And versus, oh, we're just going to put everything on the screen. Now you understand it. You could understand it without seeing the words. the acting was, in my mind, that good. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about the cinematography. I know you and I had discussed, and there were aspects of that you really appreciated.
So the cinematography today was brought to us by Paweł Pogorski.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's a hard name to say, and we may not be saying that correctly.
I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly.
Though you're trying.
I'm giving it my best.
Yes.
Powell has collabed with Ari Aster. For those of you who don't know, he did The Witch, Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid.
Oh, Beau is Afraid, and that was very recent.
That was very recent. I loved Beau. Beau was a good movie. But
you and I differ. There may be a moth or two separating us with the Beau review.
I think more like 2 moths.
I think that is accurate.
But one of the things that I thought was really cool was this isn't a drab movie. This is a very bright, vibrant, but still lived in movie. So I think that it's really cool to show that there's different placements in the character. We're not going to lie, not everything is bright and shiny and new in this movie, but even the things that aren't bright, shiny, and new have character and depth to them. I was talking with Teresa earlier. There was one scene that I felt like could have just been one note.
Mm-hmm.
And the color saturation really brought it to another level. Also, just the amount of detail and knowing when to focus in on certain things versus to pull away.
No, and truly, that is a skill. That is a skill because, as you said, it elicits emotion. It shows you where you need to go, but it wasn't like the camera was going, okay, here, let's look here. It showed the scene and the placement and the coloring. I agree with you. The coloring was really bright. I know you and I had discussed it had a little bit of an 80s vibe to it with the color.
This whole movie has an 80s vibe.
It has an 80s vibe. Do we have any questions from the box?
We've heard what you liked about the movie. Let's discuss what you didn't like about the movie.
Some of this movie felt half-handed. And it's really sad because there's some parts of this movie that I really enjoyed that really gave it excitement and freshness compared to some of the other superhero movies on the market. But there's also some parts that fell flat. I felt like the scripting could have been better. The acting is good, and they could have had more to work with. So I felt like that was kind of a disservice to the production team in this case.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we had talked about the casting. The casting, obviously, great actors and actresses. It did. It felt, flat's a good word. I wouldn't say it was boring. I would say it went on too long. I honestly, it was over 2 hours. I think they probably could have even trimmed a half hour off of it, and it would have moved a little bit faster. Unfortunately, I looked at your dad, and one of the big scenes, your dad had literally zonked off. And I thought, oh, yeah, maybe he's tired and that sort of thing. And we talked about it later, and he said, I was bored.
I heard that complaint from one of my other friends as well.
Yeah.
He had managed to catch an early screening, and he said halfway through the movie, he was just done. He's just like, I felt like I saw what I needed to see, so he left.
And that's unusual. I know we didn't leave. We were engaged enough to stay. However, this is going to sound so cheesy. However, I know for me, I tend to get a large drink or a large water when we get there because I'm generally quite thirsty. And I know for me, midway through, I thought, oh no, I drank too much of that. Oh. And typically I say, no, just wait till the movie. You're so engaged, you know. Literally halfway through, I'm like, I'll just get up. I may miss a little bit, but okay, it's fine. And literally I missed a few minutes. However, I came back. I'm standing up at the side so I'm not interrupting somebody else's cinema experience. And I was just like, and there was a lot of action. I was still like, I'm just not feeling it.
There was one scene that really got me. And I was actually surprised it got me because so far these interpretations of the characters I thought hadn't quite convinced me to emotionally care about them.
Well, I laugh because I know what scene, And I love the fact you're like, oh, it surprised me. I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, it didn't surprise me that got you. But I did. I cared about the characters. I liked the characters. But for some reason, I never fully invested. I know the brother-sister relationship felt very genuine. I have 2 older brothers, and Jaime's the oldest, and I thought, oh yeah, that would be totally me ribbing my brothers, teasing them. It felt very genuine. We talked about earlier, there was good chemistry between the 2 of them. George Lopez was in the movie Crazy Uncle Rudy. Honestly, he stole the show in so many ways.
That man's going to be a meme.
Oh, he was funny. He was if you like George Lopez, you know his humor. But honestly, even that felt a little reined in, but funny. It added the comic relief, but not like, oh, insert comic relief. It was very, very integral to the story.
It felt very organic to the story. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, if you have a crazy uncle, you're like, that's very organic. You have a couple crazy uncles. That's very organic to your life story as well. Okay, it is that time of the show. 5 moths are flying. Taunting Rebecca.
This is going to be a 2 and a wing movie for me.
Okay.
It's not a fantastic superhero movie, but it's not a terrible superhero movie. It's a very even-keel, moderate superhero movie for me.
Right. Surprisingly, I know you're tough on movies. My moth rating is actually less than your moth rating. Whoa. 2 moth rating for me.
I'm really surprised to hear this, especially considering how much you like The Flash. And a lot of people were kind of feeling that way about The Flash.
I know. And truly, I like The Flash more. And I like the character. I liked the acting. The movie felt flat. Honestly, what kept it from being just even a 1 and a wing is George Lopez.
Seriously?
He's a half to a full wing for me. However, that being said, if there is a sequel, I would consider going to see the sequel.
Yeah, I don't think this was a bad outing for the franchise.
No, it's a good start. However, do I think it's a blockbuster, have to see it tomorrow movie? Not so much. Rebecca, it is that time in the show where we discuss who we are not sponsored by. This week we are not sponsored by Black Flag.
The punk band? The one that I see all the tattoos for?
No.
The one with the guitar shifts? They sound like the Ramones in their early years? You sure?
No. Black Flag, the bug spray.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Black Flag originated, we're talking about Blue Beetle back in the day. They were founded in 1833. They were around. In fact, their original claim to fame, you'll appreciate this, their original billing of their company was they were the company whose products have killed more insects for more years than any other brand.
Well, that's pretty easy to say when you've been around since the 1800s.
Yeah, I know. It makes you kind of wonder what they were doing, right? So now they've adjusted. They've kind of tweaked their sayings a little bit more. And now they say they control certain insects. We'll talk about what they do without using any insecticide at all.
That's impressive.
I'm not sure what they do if they go like scare the bugs. They're like, bah, and the bugs go fall over dead or something. You know?
Well, maybe it makes a loud noise when you press the game. It was like,
well, maybe they play the Black Flag song. You know,
oh yeah,
and then the bugs are like, and then they just, or they run out. They're like, we don't like punk music, and then they run.
Not the bugs in my house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've not experienced that. However, I don't take out a guitar and like try to play. Right? You use Black Flag.
This guitar kills bugs.
Yeah, that's what it should say. Black guitar, exactly. Punk music, I would say. And now they have other things. Now they say, well, some of our products we use extremely small amounts of active ingredients that are still lethal. To kill insects. So they're not shying away. They're just using a little bit less these days.
It's alternative terminology.
It is. And here's the thing. So they're naming the different, insects and, pests. They call them pests, which is kind of interesting, that they take care of. We'll talk about what they do. But I love the fact that now they have unscented. So if you, I guess it leaves that dead bug smell. Just, we save it for that. But they have lemon.
So you realize now if I go to your house and I smell a bunch of lemon, I'm going to be really suspicious you just killed a bunch of bugs, right?
Right, because I'm going to sweep the bugs away, but you're going to smell this like lemon. And then they have fresh scent.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you don't want that lemon smell, You want the fresh smell. Freshly dead smell? Is it freshly dead or just
No,
fresh?
it's like fresh scent or like fresh springy scent. So yeah, no, I think that's a fair thing if you're, got some bugs that you'd rather not have. I don't know that you want to have that unscented. That just kind of made me laugh. I'm like, then what smell do you smell if you don't smell anything?
That's a very good question.
So let's talk about what they take care of. And mind you, right, they're a bug company, so they're excited. So they take care of flies, wasps, ants, yellow jackets, cockroaches. Most people don't like cockroaches. Most people will be like, yeah, I'm reaching for the spray for them. I'm like, ew, yeah, right. Hornets, ticks, spiders. The part that is interesting to me is they even take care of scorpions.
That's actually really neat and useful.
Well, in certain parts of the country, scorpions kind of crawl into your house and make themselves friendly. And I don't think I'd want a little scorpion.
I don't want to be friendly with a scorpion.
I don't. When they said cockroach, I'm like, yeah, I'm buying your spray. Even though they're not sponsoring us, I'm like, oh, no. And I would even, you're right, I would go lemon scent. The fresh scent just kind of feels a little weird to me. But the lemon, I'm like, I can handle lemon if I get weird bugs in my house.
So they're killing bugs, right?
Yes.
But they're not sponsoring us, so they're kind of killing our channel.
They're killing our channel. Right. Blue Beetle, they're like, yeah, no. I don't know. Maybe they were scared, right? That they'd be like, oh, yeah, we don't want to get associated with killing Blue Beetle. That's a movie that.
Oh, there's a PR flub.
Exactly. But yet they kill bugs, but, right? Nope, no us. The other thing I found fascinating is doing some research on them, kind of looking around, kind of seeing what they do. They have a ton of other brands.
So it's like an umbrella brand, kind of?
Correct. And the brand, it's Spectrum Brands.
Okay.
So they're under the Spectrum brand. They own George Foreman now. Not the person. No, not the boxer. They don't own him. They own his brand, right? The grills. And did I mention George Foreman does grills?
You may have.
I may have. The other, he does the Spectrum, I'm thinking George Foreman, no. So Spectrum also does Black & Decker, little vacuums.
Yes, every time I go
stuff.
into Lowe's, I basically run into one of their displays.
Exactly. Don't sponsor us still. No. But, we'll absorb Black & Decker. Also, Remington grew up with the little zzz, the Remington razors.
Kind of goes with the whole zzz, zzz
Yeah,
thing.
I know. Maybe that's where they thought. They're like, wait a minute, we know that sound. Wait, we could buy the Razor brand.
It's not a bug.
It's not a bug. Exactly. The other one I thought you'd find fun is they do Russell Hobbs. And Russell Hobbs back in the day in the UK.
Well, I mean, if I can kill a bug with my electric kettle if I hit it hard enough.
Well, they do the toasters and yeah, right. And I remember Russell Hobbs was absorbed. No pun intended but I'm like, oh my gosh, they're Spectrum. They're like Black Flag is under Spectrum. The other thing that Spectrum does, they actually have a whole section of ideas. Like if you have innovative ideas, they want you to include them on their website. They say, hey, they do a lot of pet care brands. And they're like, if you have a pet care idea, you have a home and garden idea. It's like this whole section it says submit innovative ideas.
Now, do you get like compensation? Do they give you like credit for it?
I hope so. You're like, hey, I'm helping you kill bugs. Oh, I'm sorry. No, thanks for that great idea though. I'm assuming they do. They have it where you can, type it in, go do, and then
you have contact information.
Correct. And then they contact you.
So it's not like anonymous tip box. Hey, I really want this bug dead. Do you have this thing?
Well, and they have a contacts page, right? So if you're interested and you're asking, and so, back in the whole, let's submit an idea. We submitted an idea. Hey, how about sponsoring us? What do you think they said?
Nah.
No, they answered that one pretty fast. They were like, yeah, no.
They're like, this is going to be the easiest PR decision.
Exactly. They're like, nope. Compensation. Nope. But if I had a great bug idea, like, hey, like you said, kill a bug this way, I bet you they would call me back. Ooh, yes. So as much as we appreciate them, as much as we appreciate Black Flag, if I had a scorpion walking in my house, cockroach, flying something that I don't really want to handle anymore, I would appreciate Black Flag. However, I don't really appreciate them not sponsoring us today.
I think I'm just going to turn on the music then.
Yeah, I think so. Back to the guitar. Thank you very much, Black Flag.
If you enjoyed our review on Blue Beetle, please like, which helps more viewers find our cinema community, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming reviews, and please share with your friends. And now it's time for a Retro Rewind. This week, we chose Shazam.
Billy Batson has been searching for his family his whole life, but after a mysterious wizard grants him magical powers to guard the world from the 7 deadly sins and Dr. Savannah, he has to choose between what he wants from the world and what the world needs from him, while still trying to balance living as Billy Batson, his alter ego.
Teresa, I know you were really excited about this movie for a retro rewind. Would you explain to our cinema community why you chose this movie?
Well, first of all, we both chose the movie, I would say. However, did I advocate for this movie? I did. The movie came out 2019, so fairly recent. New sequel came out in 2023, but the movie we're talking about is the original, Shazam. I chose the movie, I'll be honest with you, I know less about superheroes and characters, as if our cinema community has yet to figure that out. I'll put it out there really clearly. I really like Zachary Levi. I remember back in the day, you and I used to watch Chuck. So I'm familiar with Zachary Levi. He's the title character. He's the adult Shazam, and we'll talk about the younger version of Billy Batson. Batson.
Swing with a bat.
With the bat.
He's from Philly. He attacks with a bat.
Exactly right. Batson. The trailers made the movie look good. I'll be honest with you. Seeing the trailers, Zachary Levi going in with a lot of goodwill. It felt, before we saw it, it felt very lighthearted and fun versus dark, brooding Batman, Christian Bale Batman, dark and heavy and serious. And I was excited about that. Something fun, something interesting. And the backstory about him living in a foster home with his foster siblings, I thought that was a little bit creative. He actually had a family to draw from. And he wasn't some billionaire living on, living in a cave somewhere with Alfred and a red phone. As much as I appreciate the Batman franchise, it just felt, oh, look, he has a family. It's an alternative, family because of his early childhood. But he didn't turn into anything. He just put on a superhero costume. Like we're talking about Blue Beetle, he became the Blue Beetle. Shazam was his alter ego.
Yeah, the Blue Beetle, the characters are closely tied with their mantle. With Shazam / Captain Marvel,
sure,
these characters are kind of like the actualized versions of these characters. So I was really excited to see how this would kind of turn around. Would it be too kiddish versus too adult leaning? I think this movie strikes a good balance between the two.
Well, and I know you and I had talked about there were some nods to the movie Big, Tom Hanks, which is one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies. Easter eggs also related to Big. It had that feel to it. We were talking about what are some of the parts of the movie we really liked. And I know for me, there was a part where his foster brother, Freddie, was taking pictures. He's like, well, what can you do? What can you not do? Can can we light you on fire? Can we shoot bullets at you? What can we do? And Zachary Levi, I think, really felt like a young kid, or a teenager, I should say. I think he was like 15. He's in high school. So a young kid. And it was funny. The actor Asher Angel, who played young Billy Batson, the high schooler, he was phenomenal as a kid. And it felt very fluid, as crazy as that sounded. You have Zachary Levi on the one side as Shazam, and then you have Billy Batson as Billy Batson. They felt very fluid, and you could almost see an adult being portrayed like Zachary Levi, if that was your situation, just like Tom Hanks. And like I said, I have a lot of goodwill toward that movie.
Their mannerisms were really tightly mirrored.
That's a good example.
I was really impressed with the level of detail that both actors spent time learning each other's body language, because that really shows and that this is a complete character. A lot of the adulted up characters.
Yes.
You see this more in Fury of the Gods, which is the sequel. But even for the brief, 10 or so minutes, you see them, the rest of the cast, as their adulted up versions. It makes sense. I very clearly see who's meant to be who. And it's not just because of the color schemes and other things. I'm watching how they react to each other.
Well, and I liked all the siblings. I know we had talked about his foster brother, Freddie.
Freddie Freeman, I always have a soft
Yes.
spot for. I know Elvis has mentioned Freddie as an influence on his character, and that was one of the things that originally got me interested in the comics.
Oh, wow.
But it's nice to see that these characters maintain heart. It's not about toughness. It's about emotional composition that makes a hero.
Rebecca, some of your favorite actors, and there is a parallel to a recent Cocoon Cast broadcast.
Gosh, Gran Turismo again.
Our wizard Shazam.
Dijon Hansu shows up as the wizard. I think he has this really cool ability to take whatever bit part he's in and just elevate it and make you excited to see more, and he definitely uses that on display here.
Quite a versatile actor.
He's gotten a few Academy Award nominations, so don't let him fool you, though.
Correct. And as you said, his parts may not be big and leading. However, he is acknowledged and recognized by his peers as well.
I find it funny, though, with this franchise, he's also appeared in both Marvel and DC. He does a small bit part in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I guess I missed that part.
Next time we watch it, I'll point it out to you. He's the guard in the beginning that goes, "Who's Star-Lord?"
Exactly. All right. Do we have any questions from the box?
The movie transitioned several times from Billy Batson as a teenager and also as an adult as Shazam. Did that leave you feeling disjointed, or was it hard to follow?
There's one scene that focuses on Billy's emotional journey when he's meeting up with his mother. And you really see the pain that Billy's going through. But then as Shazam, in this film, he also meets up with another one of the characters. And this character isn't facing as great of emotional circumstances, but there's still a very large dilemma involved. And you can see the same, as I mentioned, some of the same mannerisms and also character choices follow through. So it feels very much like the same person.
I would agree with that. It didn't feel disjointed, and sometimes movies that flash back versus, just very fluid or have callbacks and things like that do feel disjointed to me. This one, I would agree with that. It didn't feel disjointed, even though it's a huge leap from a teenager to someone in their, mid-20s, late 20s?
Mid-20s.
Mid-20s. You could be Shazam.
Darn, I'm not wearing my lightning bolt shirt today.
Exactly. It is that time of the show, Rebecca, where we give it a moth rating. 1 to 5. Moths flying. Watch out, black flag. Don't go near the black flag. Hurry up. The black flag is coming out.
Okay. All right. I think this is going to be a 3 for me.
A 3. And number one reason for a 3 moth rating.
The engagement in terms of the audience. There's great stakes for these characters, and it moved along very quickly. The pace was vroom, vroom, vroom.
Yes, I would agree. The pacing was good. I know for me, I would say a 3 and a wing. Close to a 4, actually. Even seeing it, I haven't seen it too many times. I think I've seen it about 3, maybe 4 times. So I would say a solid 3 and a wing for me. The acting was good. As you said, the pacing was good. The humor was good. Honestly, I felt Big had more features that I liked and I appreciated about it, but because it had a big feel to it, I really enjoyed it. So a solid 3 and a wing. If you've seen the movie Blue Beetle or the movie Shazam and want to watch or share a review with a friend, head over to our companion channel, Cocoon Cast Clips, where we take this show and cut it up into bite-sized clips. Perfect when you're short on time or want to share our review with your cinema community.
It's that time of the show where we hear from you. We'd love to see you standing outside of your theater with your cinema community. Please send your photo to hello@cocooncast.com. Be sure to tell us what movie you're seeing and who you are so you can show our community your cinema spirit. Now let's talk about some of the cool comments we've been getting.
First up, we have Big Tony Styles. He commented on our review of last week's Gran Turismo. Here's what he had to say. Seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity with Neil Blomkamp at the helm, but it wouldn't surprise me if this movie finds success at the box office given the popularity of the Gran Turismo series. I also hope that we will continue to see more video game adaptations. They seem to have turned a corner. I don't think that was a pun intended. in the quality with releases like Uncharted and TV shows like The Last of Us and Twisted Metal. I think you might be right.
It's really nice to see that companies are seeing their video game properties and going, how can we appeal to fans in a different way? I agree with Tony. I think that this movie will find its audience once it hits wide release.
Well, and like you said, the video games, Super Mario was earlier this year.
That made so much money.
So much money. And it is an interesting adaptation. He's right. It's how can we take this, characters that people like, know, have goodwill toward, and reinvent them a little bit or give them more story.
He also mentioned The Last of Us. That is getting spectacular press for being an excellent adaptation of a TV show. Have not seen it yet. I really want to. It's on my list.
Oh, wow.
But everybody who has seen it that I've talked to, nothing but good things to say.
Wow. Well, it sounds like Tony's promoting that as well. And Twisted Metal, I'm not even at all familiar with that.
That's the new series on Peacock. Anthony Mackie is in it. He's playing the lead.
Oh, okay. All right. I would agree. I think Tony makes some really good points. And I do agree that Gran Turismo will find its audience. And I know you like director Neil Blomkamp, so it sounds like you may agree with that sentiment.
I do. And it was really sad to see Blomkamp kind of take this project, and it didn't turn out the way that I was expecting it to.
Sure.
But don't let us stop you from having a good time at Gran Turismo when it hits wide release. Comment below and tell us what you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Big Tony. Next up, we have a comment from Joe Jetski for our midweek review of Jules. Joe Jetski writes, I enjoyed this movie. It was a nice break from the blockbusters and just a fun story. It had great acting. I agree. If they had used less accomplished actors, this movie probably would have been cheesy with a lot of eye rolls. Instead, I wanted to take the journey and see how it ended. Lots of good, dry humor. Thank you, Joe Jetski, for no spoilers. We appreciate that. And as Joe Jetski mentioned, we did a midweek review, and from time to time, we will do midweek reviews, drop them. Encourage you to go see movies that maybe you wouldn't typically see, maybe not a blockbuster. I think Joe Jetski gets it right, that it was a fun story. Ben Kingsley was in it. Jane Curtin was in it. That was an interesting movie. We walked away from that actually really enjoying that.
That's a movie that I really hope finds an audience soon, because little independent movies like this don't always get the big budget attention that, say, a blockbuster like Gran Turismo might.
Absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely, Joe Jetski. Thank you. We appreciate that.
As a friendly reminder, if you send in your photos to hello@CocoonCast by Wednesday, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you might be on the show. So please send them in.
And now it's time for our Hollywood news. Hey, Rebecca, I hear there may be some latest and greatest news with your favorite topic, the topic that we have talked about many a times.
Almost every show that we've had in pre-production and post-production.
That is right. So is there something you would like to tell us about your favorite topic this week? Actually. Tell us.
No more waivers.
No more waivers.
No más.
Wow. Wow. Blue Beetle would be very proud of you. Your Spanish or Espanol is very good. Es muy bueno.
Un poquito español. Anyways, SAG-AFTRA is no longer approving waivers. So if you have a waiver on your project, that is it. Consider yourself lucky. The loophole is closed.
Wow. All right. And where are you reading this?
Gene Maddow brought this to us via Vias Variety.
Okay. So Variety is reporting this, and the gist is no more waivers?
No more.
Wow. But there were loopholes.
207 of them.
207 loopholes. Wow, what kind of lawyers write and that material? Like 200. It's like, where do you even come up with 207?
There's no funding from any major studios to bring us these projects. The other thing is they have to preemptively agree to any SAG-AFTRA terms.
Oh, wow.
So no matter what happens, you have to agree to this. They're saying we will accept whatever happens if you allow us to keep working.
Wow. This is pretty intense. And how is this being received on the other end, right? We're over here going, wow, what are they thinking?
I saw a quick headline that
Yes.
said something to the fact that over 60% of Americans are approving of these strikes. In fact,
Oh, interesting. Okay, so the public
that was also in
opinion
Variety.
polls. Oh, wow.
That was also in Variety. I saw it real quick before we went in the show. I didn't have time to read the article.
Sure.
The other thing is this shows cooperation from the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. In fact, in their statement denying any more waivers, they said, quote, "We have been advised by the WGA that this modification will assist them in executing their strike strategy, and we believe it does not undermine the utility and effectiveness of ours."
Okay, so do you feel that that's going to move them closer to a resolution at this point, or
I believe so. I think this is going to bolster their position. There's already been some infighting in the union. I know I mentioned that Sarah Silverman brought this to the general public's attention. It's like, hey, this is not doing anybody any favors.
I know we were talking about some of their catchy signs that they're holding. Patton Oswalt's daughter was holding a great one.
Alice's sign, I think, is the best sign this strike. But if you see any more, send them to hello@cocooncast.com.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate her sign, which was "Get my dad back to work. He's really annoying," which is great. Clearly, this is affecting families and actors and actresses, so no one is winning in this arena.
Nobody's winning. Not even the big guys who are trying to hold out and going, well, maybe they'll cave. But it's like,
No.
even they are losing so much money.
Wow. So this may actually help it start to close down.
Yeah, I
close
think
the
this will
gap.
go
Okay.
faster.
Any predictions on how long the strike will be now? I know
I'm
you've-
always really scared to do this because if I open my mouth, something's going to happen. And if it lines up, I'm like, oh, crap, I called that.
Well, and you're hoping you don't. You had projected several months.
Yeah. And you were shocked, I remember, in our initial
Yes.
projection. You're like, I don't know how that's going to work. And like 3 months later.
Correct. All right. This is good. This is good to know. However, as much as we don't mind reporting on strike information, we'd love to see people back to work.
We want to see people back to work in ethical environments.
Absolutely.
And that's what the
Correct.
strike is all designed to do. It's supposed to create an ethical environment for the writers and the actors.
Yes, and that's a great point. It's not just get back to work already. It's get back to work with change and over time creating a better and healthier environment for them. Absolutely right. Do we have any questions from the box?
Now that they've closed the loopholes, do you think it'd be a good strategy for the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA folks on strike to go picket those 207 loopholes to put even more pressure?
There's smart strategy and then there's effective strategy.
What's the difference?
The smart strategy is not always the effective strategy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are aware that everybody's on strike. I think the picketing will kind of move the minds of the people that are kind of unsure about whether they
Okay.
should be working on these. If that's your target audience, go picket. If that's not your intention, there's other ways you could be fighting the good fight for them.
Well, I'm laughing. It's kind of divide and conquer. It's like loophole, picketers here. It's truly, it may be, they need some people out there.
Or even if it's something like change up your strategy, like I know the Paramount gets a lot of press for being on the picket line. Disney's been getting a lot of
Disney's
press.
been getting a ton as well, yeah.
The big one that's interesting to me, especially just from a public relations study standpoint,
Sure.
is Warner Brothers. Because they have the studio tour still going on.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine that? You walk by and they're like, and like, wow.
They are... So
Holy
according
moly.
to a Deadline article I read a couple weeks ago,
Wow.
they're not even mentioning the strike on this.
That's amazing. No, because
Strike? What
we've
strike?
done that. Well, it's fair to say life needs to continue. However, you see all these people picketing and you're like, okay. And they're people that you've seen on your favorite shows or favorite movies. And you're like, oh, here they are. Do they sign autographs? Is that breaking the... I don't know.
If it's creating publicity for a SAG-AFTRA project. they might.
I don't hear that they have any issues with creating, not a scene, but just letting people know they're
Awareness,
there.
general awareness.
Awareness is the good word because scene feels dramatic and, judgy, and that's not where I'm going with that. So I appreciate that. I will note that we're talking about loopholes, and of course, every time I hear the word loophole, I think, your name means loophole. So why are you not out there picketing and supporting them?
If I was in Hollywood right now, I definitely would spend my days off helping them out with that.
Yeah, absolutely, because as we said, we want a resolution. And now we have a little bit of lighter news. Rebecca, did you know that this week a new Peruvian snake was found?
There's always a new snake somewhere.
There is a well, no, not just anywhere. This new snake was in Peru and named after our good friend Harrison Ford.
Who told you this, Bert?
No, right. No, actually, CNN's reporting this, BBC News. The news that I was reading was BBC News and their New York branch. This was Chloe Kim. And she reports that Harrison Ford has a new snake named after him.
Is there an old snake named after him? He's kind of getting
Well,
up there.
all right. Well, let's talk about it. So Harrison Ford apparently is quite the environmentalist guy. He actually is part of a nonprofit organization. I'm not sure for how long. He's actually the vice chair. It's Conservation International. It's the name of the group. He actually has an ant named after him. Yes.
An ant?
An ant named, I know, and Black Flag. It's like, look out, Harrison Ford. They're coming for you. And a spider.
Okay.
Back again, Black Flag, not that spider. Yes, we can name him Harrison Ford. Of course, they have this wonderful Latin name. Yes, exactly.
I'm gonna go put Peter right there.
Exactly. Well, with Black Flag around, you should be careful. Though they're not sponsoring us, they still may find us. But the Harrison Ford part, we had laughed because it's funny too. It's not just we need to name Harrison Ford. It's part of it is because of the work that he does. And he is so passionate about this community, very invested. And I love his quote. So let me read his quote to you.
You read me one quote in an attempt to kind of give me a teaser of what you were going to talk about today.
Oh, it's funny. Well, and they're asking, they're like, what do you think about this? And he's like, I'm very humbled. Of course he is. And okay, so let's read Harrison Ford's quote. Let's get that correct. So Harrison Ford says this, and this is to the organization he's part of. He's actually reading this. He said, "These scientists keep naming these critters after me, but it's always the ones that terrify kids. I don't understand. I spend my free time cross-stitching. I sing lullaby to my basil plants so they will not fear at night."
That sounds really sweet. I feel like he'd get along with Jeff Goldblum. They kind of have that feel.
Oh, it was very sweet, and he's like, oh, I'm so humbled, and I thought, what a great guy. They're naming after him, and so there's this picture of the snake, and it has these little brown eyes. He's kind of slithery. Apparently, he's non-poisonous, which is
that's
nice.
always nice.
Yeah, so I'm laughing. Our cinema community's like, oh, snakes, right? The Harrison Ford Indiana Jones snake experience. And so they showed him this picture of the snake. I don't think they brought in a live one. I think it was just, a little snapshot of the snake. And he said, the snake has eyes you could drown in. It spends most of its day sunning himself by a pool of dirty water. We probably really would have been friends in the 60s. And I thought, he does. He says the best. And he said, unlike his Indiana Jones character, he actually felt a quick kinship with this one.
If anybody on the science team that discovered this snake presented to Harrison Ford, please email us. I think it would be kind of interesting to see what that's like from the scientist's perspective.
All right, well, let's talk to the primary researcher, Edgar Lair, who's the lead author.
Oh, we got him to interview on the show?
Well, not on the show.
Oh, man.
No, he went the way of Black Flag. I think he was afraid. He's like, well, maybe if they sponsor, maybe they'll, So this is in a German journal, and it's called Salamandra.
Salamandra, yeah.
Yeah, right. I thought that was pretty funny. Maybe it's just me who finds this amusing. So he said, wouldn't it be cool to dedicate this new species to Harrison Ford? Also funny because he hates snakes in his Indiana Jones character. So the irony was not lost. It wasn't, hey, we're going to name the snake after you. And then we say, oh, Harrison Ford, he's not just like Star Wars. He actually did Indiana Jones, doesn't really like snakes. And he didn't go, oh, he knew. So I appreciate it.
Scientists don't have a sense of humor.
That's exactly what I thought. I just cracked up. So I thought that was pretty darn cool. Do we have any questions from the box?
This is a different kind of article. Why are we discussing this?
Let's talk about that, actually. I had another direction we were going to go this week. However, a friend of Cocoon Cast shared this information with me, and while I was actually talking with him, I was pulling up this information, and I thought, oh, maybe it's like this small little article. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean,
Everybody's on strike.
Well, yeah, right.
That's why.
Yeah, when Harrison Ford snake news, it's like, oh man, they're still on strike. But he's like, oh, I read that this morning. It's pretty interesting. And Harrison Ford and a snake, and he's telling me, the Latin name. I'm like, seriously? And I thought, okay, maybe it's one article. And as I looked, bum, and not just scientific journals, we're talking CNN, BBC, all my normal feeds that I read. Sure enough, it shows up. And the quotes of Harrison Ford, like him or not as an actor, he does a lot of environmental work. He's active in his community. He's very passionate about that. And his sense of humor about this really is what stood out for me too. And I just thought that was pretty funny. And I'm thinking, who wouldn't like a snake named after them?
I don't know. It depends on the snake, man.
It could be, Rebecca Snakeus.
Yeah, say that 20 times
Yeah,
fast.
right. And so it's like, I'm laughing too because we think about, people go, oh, I have stars named after me. Oh, people name their kids after them, stuff like that. And I laugh because he had a snake. And it wasn't just a snake. So I thought, okay, he had a snake named after him. Oh, the irony of Indiana Jones. I like to laugh. That was really funny. And then it's like, and then there's an ant. And I'm like, oh. And then there's a spider. I'm like, oh. So this is a thing for this man.
The continuing Harrison Ford animal saga.
We don't know what's next, but I do find it fascinating. Thanks for joining us this week. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Next week, we are excited to be reviewing Golda, and on our Retro Rewind, The Woman in Gold.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this show, you might want to check out last week where we reviewed Gran Turismo and Ford vs. Ferrari.
Remember, cinema community, movies are better together. Thanks for watching. See you next week.